Welcome to this webinar presented by the It's My Choice project from the Barbara Schleifer Commemorative Clinic. The It's My Choice project is funded by the Department of Justice Canada. This webinar is one in a series that gives basic information about areas of law that may be helpful for survivors of gender-based violence. This webinar will focus on temporary resident permits for victims of family violence. The information in this webinar is current as of February 13th, 2026. Please note that this webinar is designed to provide legal information and does not give legal advice about any specific situations. If you or someone you know has specific legal questions, it is best to consult with a lawyer. If you need help finding a lawyer, you can contact your local legal aid clinic or the Barbara Schleifer Commemorative Clinic. Let's begin the webinar. A temporary resident permit, or a TRP, is a special document that authorizes a foreign national who is inadmissible to Canada or does not meet the requirements of Canada's immigration laws to enter and/or remain in Canada. A person may be inadmissible or non-compliant with Canada's immigration laws due to criminality, complex medical reasons, and past or current immigration violations, such as overstaying beyond the expiry of their legal status in Canada. TRPs are temporary. They are only granted by immigration authorities for a limited period of time. Generally, TRPs are granted only when immigration authorities determine that the person's need to enter or remain in Canada outweighs any potential risks to Canadian society. Before we discuss the details of TRP applications, it is important to understand who the decision makers are. Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, or IRCC, is broadly responsible for setting immigration and refugee policy for the Government of Canada. On an individual scale, however, IRCC is also responsible for making decisions on various immigration applications, including TRP applications. TRP applications are essentially paper applications. The applicant is solely responsible for presenting all documentary evidence and relevant information about their circumstances to IRCC. The IRCC officer may render a decision based on the documentation they receive. If the officer is not satisfied by the documentation provided by the applicant, an interview with the applicant may be warranted. The IRCC officer must take the survivor's safety into consideration when requesting an interview. TRP applications are also discretionary applications. That means they are decided on a case-by-case basis and consider the applicant's unique personal circumstances. IRCC officers assess each case individually, weighing the applicant's reasons for travel or reasons to stay in Canada against any potential risks to public safety or the integrity of Canada's immigration system. A TRP for victims of family violence is a special TRP issued by IRCC to protect individuals in Canada whose temporary immigration status makes them vulnerable to abuse. Specifically, these TRPs are meant for foreign nationals who are experiencing family violence from their spouse or common law partner in Canada. A TRP family violence can be used to temporarily regularize a family violence survivor's status in Canada. It allows the survivor to remain in Canada legally for a temporary period, even if their legal status has expired or is dependent on their abuser. The purpose of this TRP is to provide the survivor safety and give them time to stabilize their situation without fear of immediate removal from Canada due to being out of status. It is very important to note that if a survivor already has valid legal status through another immigration program, they are therefore not out of status and a TRP family violence will not be issued. From IRCC's perspective, family violence is defined as any form of violence committed by a spouse or common law partner, including physical abuse, including forcible confinement, sexual abuse, including sexual contact without consent, psychological abuse, including threats, intimidation, humiliation, or isolation through controlling behaviors, financial abuse, including fraud and extortion, and neglect, which consists of failing to provide the necessities of life, including food, clothing, medical care, or shelter. There are two eligibility criteria for TRPs for victims of family violence. First, the survivor must be physically located in Canada. They must be experiencing family violence or abuse from their spouse or common law partner while in Canada. Second, the survivor must have been seeking permanent residence that depends on staying in a genuine relationship in which there is abuse. Some examples include: you have applied for permanent residence through a spousal sponsorship submitted by your abusive spouse or common law partner. You have been misled or lied to by your abusive spouse or common law partner that they have submitted a spousal sponsorship when indeed they have not. You intended to apply for permanent residence through a genuine relationship with your spouse or common law partner that became abusive. Your abusive spouse or common law partner is applying for permanent residence through another immigration pathway, such as express entry, and you were to be included as an accompanying dependent on that application. It is important to note that the TRP family violence is not only meant for family class applications. Situations of family violence can also arise in applications under other immigration classes, for example, economic pathways or protected persons. Children may also be experiencing or witnessing abuse and neglect. Dependent foreign national children of victims of family violence, who are also in Canada and also out of status, are eligible for a family violence TRP. There may be many reasons to apply for a TRP family violence. IRCC officers will consider the reasons a survivor needs a TRP family violence when deciding whether to issue one. For example, some reasons a survivor may need a TRP family violence are to escape the abuse of their spouse or common law partner, have more time to decide if they want to leave Canada, have more time to consider other immigration options, ensure they are not separated from their children in Canada while they decide next steps, and earn a living without fear of family violence using a work permit. IRCC officers will also consider the survivor's ties to Canada, whether the survivor is involved in child custody or family law matters related to their situation of family violence, and any factors relevant to the survivor's protection. Under IRCC's policy for TRPs for victims of family violence, there is no requirement to provide proof of criminal charges against the abusive spouse or common law partner, or proof of police involvement related to the family violence situation. A survivor does not have to make a police report or testify against their abuser to get temporary resident status. However, if police have become involved or criminal proceedings are ongoing, it may be helpful to provide supporting documentation in support of the TRP application, including but not limited to police records if you do decide to report the abuse, criminal court documents such as the abuser's bail conditions, probation orders, sentencing or trial transcripts, or your victim impact statement, family court documents such as an application to resolve parenting issues or other court orders, letters of support from shelters, hospitals, healthcare providers, counselors, family members, friends, neighbors, or any other person with relevant knowledge about your situation, an assessment by a psychologist or therapist, any photos if relevant, and copies of emails or texts if relevant. A TRP, including a TRP family violence, that is valid for at least 180 days or 6 months, makes the holder eligible to apply for an open work permit and a study permit. Remember, having a TRP does not exempt the permit holder from the requirement to apply for a work and study permit if they wish to work and study in Canada. Survivors applying for a TRP family violence have the option of applying for a fee-exempt open work permit and/or study permit if they wish to work or study in Canada. The work permit or study permit applications can be processed at the same time as the TRP family violence application due to the urgent nature of this type of case. The work permit or study permit applications are also fee-exempt, which means the applicant does not have to pay any processing fees usually associated with those applications. IRCC processes TRP family violence applications on an expedited basis, given the vulnerable situation of family violence survivors. This means TRP family violence applications are usually processed faster than normal TRP applications. In the clinic's experience, TRPs for victims of family violence are usually issued for a 12-month period. A TRP family violence holder can request a subsequent TRP family violence prior to the expiration of their current one. TRP family violence applications are also fee-exempt, meaning the applicant does not have to pay any processing fees or biometric fees usually associated with normal TRP applications. Finally, survivors who have been granted a TRP family violence can benefit from federally funded healthcare coverage through the Interim Federal Health Program, or IFHP, for the duration of their TRP. This only applies if the survivor does not already have publicly funded healthcare coverage or private health insurance. The Barbara Schleifer Commemorative Clinic offers legal, counseling, and interpretation services to marginalized and racialized populations of women and gender-diverse people who have survived violence. The It's My Choice project aims to increase access to justice by providing fully integrated, trauma-informed, independent legal advice and independent legal representation to women and gender-diverse people who have experienced sexual assault and/or intimate partner violence. For sexual assault survivors, this includes criminal and non-criminal options. For survivors of intimate partner violence, this includes family law, immigration law, and intersections with criminal law. Furthermore, in partnership with community organizations across the province, sexual assault and intimate partner violence survivors will have the option to access these services remotely at satellite or pop-up clinics and on-site at the Schleifer Clinic. Thank you for watching this presentation from the It's My Choice project at the Barbara Schleifer Commemorative Clinic. Please note that the information in this webinar is current as of February 13th, 2026. Immigration laws, policies, and requirements may have changed following the recording date of this webinar. If you have questions or would like to speak to a lawyer, you can contact the Barbara Schleifer Commemorative Clinic at our website or at 416-323-9149. Thank you.